Welcome. I am Chad.
I'm George.
And this is KAJAM. Say it!
No, you can't use that one.
We're using this one. Say it. This is KAJAM.
We are KAJAM.
And this is Zelda II. Are we watching the thing?
Yeah, I was gonna wait for the music.
Oh, okay.
Oh, man. Totally bungling this up.
No,
Came out in 1987 on the Famicom Disk System.
Wow.
The seminal sequel to Zelda 1. I would say that if anybody had ever taken inspiration from this game or anything, but it is in the words of Tim Rogers, the first and last game of its exact kind.
It's much
Therefore,
better than the first game.
That's debatable. Pretty
This
good.
came out a year after Zelda 1 in Japan, right?
Year and a half, yeah. First game came out in Japan in February. February. Second game came out in June. Yeah. And then this game came out a year later in America in 1988.
See, this is Link's most adventuresome quest yet.
That's the best title crawl. What was the first game? If not... Anyway, whatever. So as you can see, we've already beaten this game.
We beat this game, I'm pretty sure, all in one sitting, right?
Pretty much
That
all
was
in a
one sitting?
single sitting.
I think it literally
It was the first
was.
time you had ever played it, too.
Yeah, it was the first time. People... We're going to mention this multiple times over, but people seem to think this is the most confusing game of all time. But Jordan and I, we managed to make through it in one sitting with little to no experience or knowledge of the game at all.
Only using the manual.
A few times.
Or, a few times, but no guides or any external material that didn't come with the game. And it's extremely interesting. It's full of design choices that are pretty astonishing and kind of like extremely innovative. And it's really funny to me that it just seems like nobody remembers all the great stuff that this game did.
Oh my God, there's already so much to discuss already. When you
you
start the game up in this room with what appears to be Zelda of some kind. It is actually not the same Zelda as in Zelda 1, but it is a Zelda who is asleep, and every time you game over in this game, you'll be brought back to that specific place, which is a thing that a lot of people hate, but it doesn't actually really hurt the game much at all, except for in one part much later on, where it is definitely a large nuisance.
For most of the game, the map kind of funnels you around pretty well. Once you get the hammer, you'll find that there isn't that much it's like super out of reach from the start of the game. That you can't get back to it pretty quickly and easily. We're coming to this cave. It's gonna be pretty dark without.
Look at that blue.
It's gonna be pretty dark without the candle, which we'll get in the first palace.
And for anyone who's looked at Zelda 1, it is immediately clear that this is not Zelda 1. And one of the primary indicators of that is this completely different overworld system where you're moving around on this open map, and then enemies kind of just pop up and start running at you. And if you get hit, unless you're standing on a road, you'll enter a miniature little combat segment where your objective is to touch the end of the screen to leave.
And we've already seen like the way the positioning factors into combat in a way that's a little bit more complex than the first game. You have to crouch and jump to avoid obstacles. You can reposition your shield, and that becomes massively important against enemy encounters, especially later on.
Your shield just automatically blocks, like in Zelda 1, but now there's two positions to hold it in.
Right. We already got the first heart container here. This guy can hit us while we get it. These Gorilla enemies are probably my favorites.
Yeah, they're my favorite too.
They make use of the shield extremely interestingly. But what I want to mention before any of that, because we've been doing it this whole time, is the overworld traversal and the way that encounters are handled in this game. It's pretty different from just about anything of the time, or even for years to come. And I'm surprised I haven't heard it talked about more often in relation to other random encounter systems like Pokemon, where there are certain zones where encounters can spawn, and as long as you're walking on the road, there aren't any encounters at all. You have to go off the beaten path to run into enemies.
An enemy will run into you when you're on the road, but if you're on the road, you will not be transported to an encounter.
Right. It's a nice little delay on the sword attack, so you have to learn to time it well.
It's a fantastic animation when the recoil when he swings his sword, and when you swing it really quick, it's just the feel, the momentum of the jump. The combat is pretty much exactly what it looks like.
It's very clear.
Oh, I love these guys.
These guys are great. Move in a little bit and crouch.
Oh, we should probably explain this now.
This is moving pretty quickly.
The NES games just kind of went.
This experience system is unique to this game and actually really well balanced. Like by the end, you'll probably have just about maxed out your levels.
Even if you suck, even if you die a million times, you are guaranteed a level at the end of a dungeon. So by the end of the game, it's all but certain you'll be maybe at most 3 levels off the maximum level. Right.
This experience system is often what gets this game labeled an action RPG, and I'm inclined to agree. As opposed to the various other Zelda games, which I think most of them, we're safe to say, aren't really what I would call role-playing games. They're more action adventure centric. Not a lot of character customization involved.
Here you've got a very tangible way to directly influence the avatar strength of your character. You can augment your life, your magic, or your sword's power. And if you want to hold that experience to spend it on a more expensive level up, you can.
Right.
But of course, if you game over, you'll lose all of that experience. So there's a lot of risk and reward involved in the experience system in this game. Later on, so dangerous will the game become that it is rare you'll want to save your experience for a different thing. You'll just take what you can get.
Yeah. So if you're going to pick and choose, you do it at the beginning.
Absolutely.
These bubbles are kind of experience pinatas here.
Hit these guys 100 times and you get a lot of experience.
Yeah, you gotta hit them a lot at the beginning, but as you get more attack power, they go down a lot easier. It said, I think in the manual for this game, I could be wrong about this, but it said that he's still using the magical sword from the end of the first Zelda, so all he can do is increase his prowess with the sword, and that's what's meant by leveling it up. Oh, as you can see, when you get hit by these enemies, they actually decrease your experience, which...
Yeah, these guys suck, but if they hit you, you lose some XP.
Yeah, so it's
I'm gonna let that
like we lost
go.
6 XP there. Yeah, not a very safe zone to be wailing on them there, but there are later ones where it's a little more convenient to do that. And just all of these enemies encourage different behaviors from the player, different attack patterns, and it's pretty smart with the way that they're laid out.
Absolutely, and especially with the sword-wielding enemies. If I'm not mistaken, one of the lead motivators behind changing up this game's combat so much from Zelda 1 was just that the developers wanted to produce a combat system that played into the idea of sword fights more strongly, that made the sword fights more cinematic and cool.
They were saying something that I think is a tiny bit of a flaw with this game. The acceleration in the way that it has an effect on your jump is a little bit finicky, and there aren't a lot of areas where it really comes into play, but there are a few where you do need to get a bit of a running start. Well, I guess... God, we're really moving through this.
This game
you're going to need a key, though, before you can move on in the dungeon here.
I recall.
But we can see with the Dark Nuts, there are different strategies. When we first played it...
oh, that was fast.
When we first played Zelda 2, it took a little bit. I was already aware of that trick, because I had played the first couple of dungeons, but never to the end. But I've heard that called a glitch, but I think it's pretty intentional. You're jumping and you're hitting him in the head.
You're basically, when you're jumping, you're giving yourself, when you're in the air, you have a little bit more bounce when you hit an enemy. You have more control. So if you go for the Darknut's heads while jumping, it just makes it a lot easier.
I don't think you need to go for that yet.
No, I don't.
Actually, you don't have any magic spells.
Yeah, so I'm doing it based on instinct. Habit. Yeah. Later on, hitting some of those statues might drop a magic jar, but right now we don't have any magic spells.
Right. Yeah, we alluded to this earlier. When we first played this game, we played it without a guide, without any kind of assistance, and we found it to be the progression to be pretty well
there's one.
telegraphed and communicated to the player, and to a shocking degree considering this game's reputation. There's a lot of tell I've seen about like how the illusory walls are really obtuse and hard to, like, you don't even know that illusory walls exist, but there's literally an NPC in town who tells you to look out for them.
The hints and the puzzles and the little riddles in this game, they're all really good, and at most they just expect you to engage with the NPCs, which the game makes already just fun because the towns in this game are so distinct from Zelda towns later on, but also later on
you might want to go get the candle before we head down here.
Yeah, that's true. What was I saying? Oh, later on, there's a possibility that villagers you talk to will actually be agents of Ganon somehow, and they'll turn into a monster and attack you. So there's always, like, at least there's some mechanical fun in talking to NPCs, but I just went out of my way to talk to all of them, and I had all the information I really needed to progress in the game.
Right. In fact, the only bottleneck there really is in the very last town of the game. There's a woman who won't let you meet the old man unless you have all of the magic jars, I believe. That's the stipulation. Yes. And so there aren't really that many of them in the game, but it is a little bit of a shame that they make you collect all of them.
Yeah, there are 3 upgrades to your magic, and you need to get all these magic upgrades to beat the game, to speak to this old man who teaches you a spell that is absolutely necessary. I think it would have been fine if they let you go without it. I think sense that they wouldn't, because the Great Palace is absolutely brutal, and you're going to want all the magic you can get. But it is a little bit weird that they force you to get it. It makes it feel less like a discovery and more like an item on a checklist. It's one of my few problems with the game, but even then, the locations of those magic upgrades are telegraphed very, very well.
Right, they're almost always in your way, so you're not going to...
I love this bridge.
You're not going to have too much trouble. Oh, can you get it? Yeah! Well done.
Uh-oh.
Oh.
Oh.
Oh, that's the first death.
Yeah. I'm doing good, though.
Doing pretty good.
Oh, yeah. Every town, most of the towns, I believe, have an old man in them who will likely teach you a spell. Some towns have a swordsman who will teach you a new sword technique. I believe the 2 sword techniques are an up stab and a down stab.
That's great, yeah. Down stab is easily the most fun move in this whole game.
Yeah, the down stab rules.
But you also get spells like the fireball, and the jump spell is always. I mean, let me rearrange my words here. The spells generally tend to see a lot of use through the game. There are very few that end up being useless, or that you can't find any reason to continue using. Like the fireball spell continues to be useful against armored enemies. The fairy spell gets a lot of kind of interesting puzzles. You can use it to escape enemies if you're really having a hard time.
The fairy spell turns you into a little fairy and you can just fly around.
Yeah. The jump spell, a lot of the level design is actually built to accommodate use of the jump spell.
A shocking amount of the level design. So many
all the way to the end of the game.
Provide you the relatively obvious opportunity to use jump to reach high ground, which is often very useful, but of course comes at the expense of your limited magic.
Right. Yeah, the magic management, especially once you get the life spell, becomes absolutely critical. and it's a really fun layer to this otherwise very twitchy action experience where you're going through and fighting enemies and
the shield. Quickly. There's a shield spell, which is I think the first spell you learn.
Oh yeah.
Just halves your damage, and that is.
You didn't even get it. You could have gone to the town to collect it.
I could have gotten it, but I don't need it because I'm a god gamer. I go up, I go down, I go down.
Oh yeah.
And that spell is just constantly useful because it halves your damage by a flat 50%. That is a spell you are always, after you enter any screen in the game, you are considering, is this a screen, because it disappears after you change screens, is this a screen where I need to use shield? And you will, no matter how clever a person you are, you will often think you don't need shield, and then very quickly regret that you didn't use shield. And it's it is just always fun to manage your magic in this game because of how much value the spells have, all of them.
And the way that their price is pretty well balanced too. The shield spell is almost always the one that costs the least, but it's the one you'll be using the most. The life spell costs the most, so often you'll weigh where you want to use it, give up for a life or any others.
Oh, you see, this is convenient here because once you beat the boss of a dungeon, regardless of your XP, it will grant you all the XP necessary for another level up. So ideally, then, to make the most efficient use of the non-respawning experience bags and just your experience that you've acquired, you would like to ideally level up exactly right before the boss of a dungeon.
Correct, and that's also true of P bags around the overworld. Like, even though there are a bunch of them you can collect just by going to that area and collecting it, you might want to weigh whether you're likely to get another, or you're confident enough in your ability to get another level up before you die and lose all of your experience. That's the big sort of pressure mechanic in this game.
You know, in a way, this guy sort of tutorializes the... Oh, no! Well, that's our first game over. That means we're going to be
sent back. Here's our first little glimpse at the Ludo narrative of this game. We didn't mention it earlier, but all of these monsters are after Link's blood to resurrect Ganon, who we eviscerated.
Specifically after his blood.
Yeah. And maybe it's worth noting, Chad wasn't that interested at all in Zelda, not Zelda, but NES games for a very long time.
Yeah, I thought they were old
and only recently started exploring the library and just kind of tore through a whole bunch of it, and including Zelda 1, and we'll definitely be making a video about that game at some point. One of my favorite Zelda games, but Zelda 2 is the one that definitely captured his attention the most. Hello. Yeah, these are the first towns ever present in any Zelda game, and they feature a fantastic music track. I like this next bit. Do-do-da, do-do-da, da.
Oops.
Sorry, she knows nothing.
Certain NPCs will hang out in front of a building, and to get into the building, you'll talk to them, and sometimes they'll ask you to get an item. One lady asks you to just bring her some water from a nearby well.
That's definitely the funniest one. You walk up to her and she says, "I'm thirsty," and you go like 2 feet to the fountain and get her water. And she says, "Wow, what does she say?
You have water.
You have water. Come to my house." It's fantastic.
Now we've got the first spell.
Of our, yeah.
You could have gone straight here.
Begotten by this old man.
And there it will list your keys and your what is that? What is the bottom? Oh, that's the number
of spheres you have left to, or crystals you have left to return to the palaces. So that number decreases as you go along. In this game, you're not going to the palaces to get stuff so much as you are to return these magical crystals to their rightful places.
So you choose your spell with start, and then you use it with select, and you use your spell and then you transition a screen, and that spell's effect is now over, and that is how it sort of If you just used the spell and had it for your whole life, then you would cast Fireball and Shield, and you would just never need to cast them again. You'd have all your... It would mean that you're not really managing your magic very much, but this system allows it to... It allows for so much skill expression, because you go into a screen and you ask yourself, what spells do I need? Or if you're in the middle of a situation, then you get to decide, oh, right now I need this spell. You'll quickly press start, change to the spell, and then you'll use it. And you go to towns...
that lady.
Yeah, I did. Towns have two women that will... One of them will help replenish your health, and one of them will replenish your magic.
I don't think there's a magic woman in this town.
Is there not?
There might be one in the town of Rudo, up into the northwest.
But I'm gonna make sure. I don't think I need it anyway, but...
you might notice the town names of this game. Every Zelda website will point this out, but the town names are the sage names of an Ocarina of Time, which... And some of them are just random characters. There's a town later, which is the town of Mido. That bratty kid in Kokiri Village. Kokiri Forest.
Yeah, now, earlier on, these guys were taking more hits to kill, but because I've upgraded my sword ability, already it is making a very large difference. And I've got the candle now, so this is lit up.
Right, yeah.
It's already, you notice the huge impact it makes for your gameplay once you've gotten a level up. And that's sort of, I mean, that's the heart of the JRPG, the stat type of game.
I think I wanted to mention this earlier, but we saw it there that the enemies are actually not too bad about dropping magic.
Yeah, they're not.
And also there are several areas in dungeons which you can strike to get magic, not unlike in Castlevania 1 where you strike the walls to get
chicken,
get wall meat or chicken.
Chicken. Yeah, well, right here, bam, chicken. These guys. Also, sometimes they'll present rooms with infinitely respawning slimes, for example, and slimes have a chance of dropping magic. So if you're in a situation like, say, you're really close to leveling up and you're nearing the final boss of the boss of a dungeon, you might decide to go turn around and find a room where you can grind a little bit to preserve that, to finish off that level, to be more efficient.
Right. Yeah.
And I've had really interesting experiences where I'd go into a room wanting to grind, but it's a really kind of terrifying room, and just the act of grinding is often pretty stressful because you really don't want to die, and you don't want to game over and lose so much progress and get sent all the way back.
Yeah, and Link is pretty fragile in this game, so it's a very careful process. So this guy, he'll respawn if you die, but or leave the palace, I think. But as long as you stick around and you killed him, he'll stay gone. You gotta lure him out here by moving back.
Oh, there's an upgrade.
There's a full restore there.
Yeah, restore, not an upgrade. I love these guys. These are just Hammer Bros, but they look like they're out of Diablo 1.
Yeah. They're Doom Hammer Brothers.
They look like no other Zelda enemy. They kind of
really
a lot of the enemies and visuals and atmosphere of Zelda 2 feels really distinct, and I wouldn't fault someone who thought it didn't really feel like Zelda because it's so odd. It's like the boss of this dungeon is a weird horse, like Minotaur. Like, what is he? What is this guy? There's a lot
of kind of Greco-Roman influence here. We can already see with the columns and everything, the design of the palaces.
Wow, this is terrible. I think this guy, in a way, he sort of might actually be teaching you to use the jumping slash technique on the Dark Nuts. I didn't think about that.
Well, he at least teaches you that it's a maneuver you can do.
Yeah,
and because you can't actually hit him any other way.
Your sword's reach is pretty low in this game, which means that you always have to get very up close with enemies.
Right, and that's I wouldn't have minded if there was an upgrade that increased the range of your sword a little bit.
Yes,
it does keep combat constantly very tense.
Beautiful effect.
Yeah.
See, now I've beaten the boss, But if you look at the top right, I'm pretty close to getting another level. If I wanted to, I could very reasonably go back into the dungeon or just leave the dungeon altogether and grind out that level and then come back here and be rewarded with an immediate another level. But because I'm so good at this game, I don't really need to do that. The experience, the magic system, the life system, upgrades, everything in this game flows together so well. It's a very, very impressive game, especially coming off the heels of Zelda 1. Now the palace is inaccessible.
Right, where Zelda 1 was just completely different. And that game, I mean, one of the little things that this game remedies, nobody's going to care about this, but it came to mind, or at least at the moment, but that the keys in Zelda 1 can be taken from dungeon to dungeon. Mm-hmm. This game immediately remedies that by making them dungeon specific. You can't carry them around. But there is something interesting about that mechanic in Zelda 1 for sure, but it is notable that this system would be present for the rest of all Zelda history.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's respectably such a different experience from Zelda 1. The combat, I mean, just looks and feels entirely different. It is entirely its own thing, rather than, I mean, plenty of NES sequels were sort of just a very similar second attempt at the first game. Castlevania 2, very similar to Castlevania 1, but kind of leaning into what Castlevania 3 would become. Mega Man is pretty similar across the board. Mario 2, well, I guess it depends which Mario 2 we're talking about, but Zelda 2 sort of stands out to me as an extremely different NES sequel.
Yeah. And that it was successful, really, is, I mean, it's a testament to the ingenuity of the Nintendo at the time. They really wanted to make a game where swordplay was at the forefront. It was much more dominant than in the first Zelda, where it was more about kind of this bullet hell maneuvering around enemies and hitting them, like moving in and hitting them and kind of dashing away.
Yeah, the combat here, you're no longer are you looking at Link from top down and have so much immediate freedom of movement. Here, everything is, your movement is slower and more restrained, and there are fewer options in a given moment, which means that every attack you make, every jump you do, has to be pretty what's the word? Pretty thoughtful. You have to put a lot of thought into every action in this game. It is a completely distinct means of combat from Zelda 1. I personally prefer this combat. It sort of reminds me of a very, very early, very rough version of Dark Souls Monster Hunter type combat.
Oh, you said it.
I said it. Better sense of that. But Zelda 1's combat is entirely still its own very beautiful, very elegant thing.
And we saw earlier. Yeah. No. Well, this lady's gonna tell us something I've already said. But earlier, the lady to the right told us that there's a trophy that we've got to find, which is not too far away. You might even stumble across it before coming to this town, which I did it when I was kind of trying out this game back in the day. But she mentions the region Tantari. Now I don't remember if that's on the map that's given to you in the manual. That the region is called Tantari.
Keys are rough in this game.
Yeah, what's especially rough are the
death pits.
The instant kill death pits. Yeah.
You can imagine a game with such limited lives and such high penalties for dying. Instant death pits become by far the most horrifying enemy in this game.
Absolutely.
Oh, here we go. This guy rules. So you can only block these. He throws them in two directions, but you have to be aiming your shield up or down to block them. But of course, you still want to attack them. So you have to keep track of the order and the angle he's throwing them at. And sometimes you can block them when he throws them out, but it's not exactly that easy. He's definitely the way that enemy type gets you mixing in attacks with blocking. It's just happens so immediately
Right.
understandable.
Because
You see him throw a
turning
boomerang.
to face away from the enemy, even.
Yeah,
Which leaves
exactly.
you open from behind.
In this combat, there's looking forward at the enemy and not looking forward at the enemy, and not that many enemies in the game get you to do both. The Dark Knights will get you jumping around a lot, but the Gorias, the blocking these, I mean, the sound effects, the clunk when it hits your shield, and that you need to choose up or down for blocking, just makes it such an engaging type of fight. Oh god. Oh god. Oh, I'm okay.
Got him. Yeah. No, the combat is especially notable and often criticized.
Need a quick drink.
But I think it's really well handled. It's hard for sure, but the way that it's balanced and the enemy design and the way that they mix it up is I don't know, it's pretty notable throughout. They constantly are introducing all the way to the end new enemy types to contend with.
Yep, all the way. I was shocked. Like, NES games don't really have, especially action-based NES games, don't typically have that many enemies. And this game still doesn't have an extremely enormous quantity of enemies, but they keep introducing new enemies. All the way in the last dungeon of the game, they're still throwing these completely unique new enemies at you.
Yeah.
And so rarely are the enemies misses. Most enemies in this game feel very fair, very enjoyable to fight. There's this one enemy type in the last dungeon that is horrific, but there are still so many cool ways to fight them. Oh, with this I can jump very high.
Thanks, buddy.
See, that jump costs a bit more magic than shield costs.
But the costs of them actually decrease as you gain more magic levels. Which I find interesting.
How many lives have
I mean, I'm sure that's not very difficult to find interesting.
Yeah. I believe now I'm headed for Death Mountain now. Yeah, because I need jump. There's a cliff that I can't scale without the jump spell.
We're going to confront the Bagu conundrum.
You know Bagu? There's a guy in the game whose name is Bagu. And he's got some buddies. Oh, these are great. See, they've already introduced the Octorok a while ago, but now they're starting to add a lot more elevation to their placement of the Octoroks. And later on, pretty soon, they're going to start putting Octoroks in these little pits, where you can only hit them when they've jumped up, which also means you can only hit them just about right as they've shot their projectile. Uh-oh.
Right, they're pretty well-placed enemies a lot of the time. They're very creatively used. Especially, there's a notable segment in Death Mountain that I like a lot.
See, sometimes you can manage if you're at the right distance, you can manage to block his boomerangs right as he throws them, rather than waiting for them to come at you. These stupid bugs. These bugs look like the bugs from Nausicaa, the Valley of the Wind.
Yeah, the ohms. Miniature ohms.
Like, this is in Zelda 1. This deep, like, let's say, I don't know, 20. What is this? 10? This is only like 10 minutes. 10 minutes into this game.
Okay, well, this has been more than 10 minutes, hasn't it?
I have no idea. You're fighting this one single enemy, and it's a challenge. You're facing up against this Goria in a tight cave. In Zelda 1, it's like unthinkable to imagine them just like making a big deal out of one enemy. In Zelda 1, the combat is all about putting you in a room and then placing a bunch of interesting enemies into that room, and then combating the combination of those enemies in a pretty rapid pace. It sort of reminds me of how Doom uses enemies. But this game just goes about it so differently. It's inspiring that they managed to decide, yeah, well, Zelda 1 was... I mean, to call Zelda 1 a big success, at least in hindsight, seems completely wrong. It is a gigantic success. Zelda 1 is supreme. And then they thought, oh, Zelda 2? Let's completely change everything.
Yeah, absolutely overhauled the game.
Let's just put Bagu in this game.
Yeah.
These are armadillos, apparently.
I think it would be Yeah, we had to look at the concept art for those guys because we had no idea what we were looking at there. It's often brought up in discussions about this game that it's like Miyamoto's biggest regret. So that, I guess I have to say there that creators aren't always the most reliable critics of their work because Eiji Aonuma made Majora's Mask and hates it.
Uh-oh. I'm trying to find Bug. He might be under the bridge, I don't remember.
I mean,
That is a
Miyamoto's
lot
not
of
always...
armadillos.
I love Miyamoto, he's not always right.
Nobody's always right. I'm just gonna go.
Um,
Oh, the fish. Oh, God, the fish become horrifying enemies later. Because they show up when there's a lot of death pits around and they fly at you.
There's a pretty reliable strategy you can use when they fly overhead. You crouch to make sure that you hit whatever, or you block whatever projectile they send out. Because it's almost always at shield's length,
Yeah, that's true.
or shield's height rather.
Eyes of
Eyes of
Ganon.
Ganon
Oh, yeah.
are everywhere.
Now, sometimes when you
careful.
talk to NPCs, they'll reveal
Thank you,
themselves
Leisure
to
Suit
be-
Larry.
He does. The guy looks like a goofus. Sometimes you'll talk
Yeah.
to someone and they'll start attacking you. Oops. Oh, that that person.
I guess there's a random chance whenever.
Yeah, it
it's
changes.
kind of
I
funny to
suppose.
see to see her hanging from the clouds there.
Is this the lady?
I find it pretty interesting. Credit to Nestrunk for this observation, but both Zelda games were already finished and released in Japan when Zelda 1 was released in America, so it was kind of, they didn't need to, much like Super Mario Bros. 2 in Japan, they didn't need to release this game here if they weren't kind of interested in seeing how it would do, or maybe if they weren't confident it was a good video game. And they made many, but it is notable they made many changes to this game for the international release, or maybe just the North American release. That I think ultimately make it a far better game now than it was.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you look it up, you'll find lots of changes to the sound effects, sprites, color palettes for dungeons. Even new bosses were made for this version of the game.
I think yeah, this is definitely the American release of Zelda 2 it seems to be completely superior, but this is a bit of an interruption, but I think this is a really important thing to talk about because this is one of multiple little riddles, I guess you could call them, puzzles in this game that is often maligned. Someone earlier in town tells us they're looking for a mirror, and
Yeah.
if you're going through this game right now, so far, visiting every house in every town, to go into this room right here and see nothing at all would be, and at least in my experience was, highly suspicious.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you
This table is absolutely
this table just
stands
like
out like a sore thumb.
there's just
this
something
is
is up with this table. So I went around. I'm pressing B. There's only 2 buttons on this controller, by the way. So I go here and I press one of my 2 buttons, and you find a mirror.
Found a mirror under the table. It's maybe one of the only times Link ever says anything.
Yeah. He could
And
be
it is
thinking
to
it,
inform the player
but
that he
it is
found
Link
a mirror.
straight up thinking or talking. Then you give the
Yeah.
mirror to this lady.
Oh, you found my mirror. Follow me.
It's almost like she doesn't even.
NPCs
Yeah.
sound like aliens in the Japanese version. It's
Yeah,
really
the
funny.
sound effect is totally off. It's almost as if a lot of those NPCs, especially the water lady, don't actually want a thing. It seems like sometimes it's more of a test.
It's weird, yeah.
Oh, this is an important spell. Life is obviously it costs a ton, but the ability to replenish your HP in this game is extremely valuable.
Yeah.
This game, like the combat, it gets rough. It gets really hard.
Yeah.
Shield and life
And as we
become
said, it
your
has-
best friends.
Has a lot to do with the magic system. It's tied in very
Yeah.
closely. 'Cause it's really your only method of replenishing life outside of towns.
Yeah. believe the goal now. I go over here, and this guy's not gonna lower the bridge.
Right.
Look at this Dragon Quest II looking guy. Looks like the guy's on the title screen of Dragon Warrior 2.
It very much does.
Yeah, only town folks may cross this river. And I believe, who is it? There's a slime somewhere in town, right? It tells me to find Bago.
There's a sleeping slime. Yeah, here.
This is another one. There's the slime in town. And
it's a really weird thing.
If you interact with him, what is it, 5 times? 4 times. Then he wakes up. Tells you his master's in the woods, N of river. I don't know what N could mean.
I think N is pretty clearly a cardinal direction.
No. It can't be. That's not possible. There's no way N could mean north. That would be unreasonable to expect. It seems like they've got a pretty limited amount of text they can give these NPCs.
Yeah. It has to fit into one box. I don't think there is any single NPC in the game whose dialogue extends past one text box.
I mean, like, any given combat scenario is going to be completely altered. Hard to talk and do this. It's going to be completely altered based on the level ups you've achieved thus far. I'm going back to town. Then I'm going to look for Bagu.
It's a very RPG scenario. Gotta go back to town.
This guy is an absolute goofus.
But what's funny is that there's no currency in this game. You don't have to spend money to sleep at an inn.
No rupees.
Restore your magic. Yeah, no rupees at all. There aren't even any traditional Zelda items. You're not going to get a boomerang of your own in this game, or bows and arrows. It's all magic and your sword.
Oh yeah, sometimes you can manage to...
While your magic is restoring, you can... it's almost like a rolling health system.
Yeah, like Earthbound's rolling health and MP. You can get the MP given you by the old lady, cast life, and then it'll replenish your magic all the way again. Like, I make use of that if it's not exactly convenient to walk all the way to the health lady.
Right.
Do I want what's in there? I think that's just XP in there. I'm gonna go find Bug.
North of the river.
So the sort of like loop, the gameplay loop of this game is you reach a town, you gather information, maybe you find some items, you typically want to talk to some old man to learn a new spell or talk to a guy to learn a new sword technique, and then you go off and find a palace.
Right, and without fail in every town, I mean, a woman tells you at the beginning of the game that every single town has an old man to learn a spell from. So you're always looking out for that. Sometimes that man is going to be sort of inaccessible at the beginning without certain items, but you'll gather clues that'll lead you there. And I think maybe it's this gameplay loop that most throws off Zelda fans, because there's really no other game that makes you do this in the same way. You gather hints from townsfolk for like side quests often in other Zeldas, but never is it as tethered to the main quest.
You remember where Bagu is?
I do.
Tell me where Bagu is.
Okay.
I know he's north of river. I don't remember the exact tile.
He's north of the river. He's up. He's like
up and
3 tiles up and then to the right. I don't remember exactly which one to the right.
Something's happening here.
I think you keep going.
These armadillos mean business. The game's got a great soundtrack, obviously. It's kind of commonplace for Nintendo games, even of the ancient NES era.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of music in this game that feels very distinct. Oh, and here's Bagu.
It's done. It's not even done by Koji Kondo, but it does feel very much like a follow-up to the original game's soundtrack. Bagu is my name. Show my note to Riverman.
Bye, Bagu. That guy.
We didn't even say hi to Error.
Yeah, I did.
Just kind of left him hanging. Oh, you did? Okay, I missed that.
The Error is an NPC that people may be familiar with, and to believe it or don't, Error actually becomes important again later. I don't remember exactly what for, but you can speak to Error for some information.
I do, actually.
Someone in another town Okay, go ahead.
I'm pretty sure he tells you to go south of the king's grave.
Oh, he's the one who tells you that?
Yeah, there's a guy in town who tells you to go talk to Bagu because he knows something, and then his dialogue changes then when you... Or, sorry, error, when he knows... because he knows something.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then he tells you to go south of the king's grave, and you go directly south.
Yeah, there's a
and
grave...
find the next area.
The way to get to one of the palaces is to find a secret cave that leads underground to the palace, and apparently Error knows the way in somehow.
Yeah.
And that demonstrates a thing.
To be an adventurer.
Yeah, and it demonstrates something that this game does a lot where, well, a lot of NES games especially do this kind of thing where if you know where the entrance to that secret cave is, you can just go there.
Right.
And if you
it's entirely contingent on like information. It's not a matter of like talking to all the right NPCs. They'll tell you what you need to know, but you don't need to talk to them if you already know what they're going to tell you. It's a big thing, especially we may talk about in Dragon Quest III.
Yeah, it's a very Dragon Quest-y thing. And of course, anyone who made games in Japan, especially in this era, played Dragon Quest.
Although Dragon Quest III would come out after this game. Dragon Quest 1 and 2 also use a similar philosophy behind their exploration.
It is hard to imagine a world where Dragon Quest III did not yet exist. Even though I lived the majority of my life not knowing what Dragon Quest was.
Yeah.
This is a deep cave.
Dum 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 dum.
Oh, and even if you you can also just if you don't want to go look for Error, you have no idea who Error is. You've never heard of Error in your life. You can just kind of search around the very suspicious grave site and find the way to the next palace, the next dungeon. There's many ways to approach the game.
This is very much a game that rewards the suspicious.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely.
Like there's a guy in a town who tells you that there's a secret at the edge of town, and in that town you acquire a spell, which is a very mysterious spell, not very clear what it does, but I think that it's pretty clear that you gotta use that spell at the edge of town. I don't want to... I guess we've already spoiled a fair bit of stuff that happens in this game.
Yeah, I mean...
However...
we will frequently likely be spoiling many things in this show.
Yeah, absolutely. I think maybe we forgot to put our spoiler warning. We'll have that.
Yeah, we'll put it in the description. They can read.
Yeah, they can read. And I don't think too many people will be disappointed with Zelda 2 spoilers at this point.
No, I highly doubt. Most people don't even, myself included. Like until I gave it a chance. I gave it a chance a while ago actually, and was surprised that I found it kind of enjoyable. That was before I even knew that NES games were good. This is a game that...
I've been trying to get Chad to play NES games for years, and it was not until he played Kid Icarus.
Yeah, Kid Icarus was the straw that broke the Chad's back.
After playing Kid Icarus Uprising, actually.
And I only played Kid Icarus Uprising because I played Panzer Dragoon Zwei, which we will cover.
Yeah, Panzer Dragoon Zwei.
The #1 best video game.
Definitely up there.
So even though I got a game over, I still talked to Bagu, and I got his note. And he told me to talk to... Who did he say? He said, show the note to the river someone.
The Riverman, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to go show it to those guys at the river.
Well, the syntax he used was to Riverman. So.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, didn't take all that long
Bagu?
really to get back to.
That I can help you cross.
Oh man, you know Bagu?
Oh my god, Bagu? Dude, Bagu's the sick. I love Bagu.
Oh man. This guy also loves that you know Bagu.
Whoa, you know Bagu? Yeah, they love Bagu. Bagu's just the talk of the town. Even though he's got this slime. That's kind of Zelda.
The slime is his buddy.
That's like the first
house.
inkling of a pretty interesting world building concept, that someone has a pet slime and this slime is not evil. That's the kind of thing that Zeldas that
Dragon
would come
Quest
after
would do a lot there.
Well, Dragon
See,
Quest
I'm
does
not
that
a
all
bad
the time.
slime.
Every Dragon Quest has a non-bad slime. But even Zelda, the idea of non-harmful monsters would become very, very significant to Zelda.
Yeah.
I don't remember the way through this. You might have to... You have, my memory is abysmal. I have a really, really bad memory.
Yeah,
Though I
might
do
encounter that a few times, people.
I do have the entire maps of of Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 3 perfectly locked into my memory. But I don't. The other day I could not remember how old I was, and I needed Jordan to remind me. So I don't know what's going on. My memory sucks.
Oh no. It's okay.
So this is apparently a specific part of the game that gets particular flack.
It is daunting, but I don't think it's nearly as like navigating it isn't really super. I don't know. Maybe I mean it depends on who you are. Various people will have certain problems with parts of games that others won't.
Difficulty is a very complicated subject in gaming.
Yeah, absolutely, and probably one we'll be coming back to a number of times.
Look at this enemy placement. I have to worm my way in here, making sure not to touch him.
Or you can try jumping over him and into the next.
And if I wanted to, I could use the jump spell right here and just very easily jump over those two guys.
Yeah. So it's got different combat applications too. You probably won't want to use it right there, but you could.
Oh, the keys have never. Some enemies like Keese and Tektites have never been as threatening as they are in this game.
Yeah. Tektites, interestingly, in the Japanese version, you didn't need fireballs to kill them. Here you do.
Do you remember which way I
go? You should going down is faster. It gets you to the next area quicker. But the upper path isn't. It doesn't take too long to get back there either, I believe.
I can take the bottom one. I got this.
Yeah, you got it.
I think I got both lives still. Oh god,
yeah,
which way?
Down
oh
to
god,
the right.
which way? Okay.
Down to the right, yeah.
Yeah, this is familiar. He's gonna get stuck in the wall. This reminds me of the fish enemies in Castlevania 1 and 3.
Right,
and
yeah.
2. I guess they're in 2. I have not finished Castlevania 2. Don't know if I ever will. But I quite like Castlevania 1 and 3. Do I have enough? I don't have enough for life.
Yeah, beating this game kind of had us reevaluating whether we should trust the reputations of certain games because...
Here's a fantastic example of using jump.
Whoa!
But, I think I can... Oh god, I can't.
Give a moment.
Oh, I didn't make it.
Very close.
You have to kind of get a little bit of momentum. We touched on this earlier.
You gotta get in there without aggroing that guy. Yeah, we can afford to use all this magic here because this one's gonna fully restore it. Oh, that's a tricky jump.
And later on,
yeah, but because you had shield, it didn't.
Yeah, I barely got anything. I think the slime might have hit me there. But later on, there'll be all kinds of stuff like that in dungeon rooms where you're considering using jump to get a nice vantage point.
Yeah.
And every single spell really gets so much value. Usually, like if you... Oh, I didn't finish this thought earlier. Until I gave Zelda 2 a chance, I just kind of... My idea of it, based on its reputation, was that it was old and bad and not really even worth my time.
Oh! Look at that. Look at that.
That was sick.
That's some good jumping.
I think I'm close, right? I'm pretty close.
Yeah, we've got a few more caves.
We're here to get the
hammer.
We're here to get the hammer, which will let us chop down some boulders. And there's like a huge segment of the game here where you can go a long time without even touching a palace, just because there's so much other stuff in the world. The world of this game... Wait, I need to shut up, actually. The world of this game's real good. Jordan can tell you why.
I can. The world of this game is really, like, as we said in the beginning of the episode, the world map actually does a really good job of closing the distance between all of these places. With when you get the hammer, there are all of these shortcuts that open up that'll let you we access later areas or even earlier parts a lot quicker than we've been able to get to them up to this point. So it just does a really, really great job with shortcuts. And another kind of interesting part of the world map in this game is that it kind of emphasizes the scale of the adventure on a different level than the first game did. The first game's world map was fairly small. You didn't really feel like you were traveling around the entire world. But here, you go across several continents, and it even makes a point to show how much bigger this game is, because the area we're coming up on...
Uh-oh. Is that my last one? Nope, I got one more.
Nope. The area we're coming up on is actually meant to be a scale recreation of the first Zelda's map, just in the bottom left corner of this game. Just kind of tucked away. So if you thought that game was big, it sends the message that this one is
it's like 20 times bigger.
Lot larger. But the adventure of Link here...
It's his most adventuresome quest yet.
Yes.
Yet meaning this is the second one he's ever had.
At least this Link, because in the very next game they're going to replace the one we know with a whole different guy. In the next and best Zelda game.
Second best 2D Zelda game? No, like third or fourth best. I'm more of a 3D Zelda type of person.
You're...
Oh, you're cutting out. We've lost you, Jordan.
What's that?
We've lost you. You think you're back? You're back.
Oh, okay. You're gonna find out pretty quickly that I'm a big 2D Zelda fan, and Chad's the 3D guy for the most part. But we both love and appreciate both ends of the series to certain degrees.
Yeah, just in general, I'm a big fan of three-dimensional games, largely for aesthetic reasons, but also at times for mechanical reasons. I think this is the end. Oh, why did I not use shield? I didn't. This is bad.
You can get him. Gotta jump over. Stay kind of at a distance and jump over his.
Uh-oh.
Well,
I definitely see my big mistake there was that I did not cast shield. I think
this was a note that you mentioned while we were playing the game, is that you kind of like that we keep getting brought back to Zelda's Chamber here.
Yeah.
Maybe
I really like.
Tell us why.
I like that the game, for one, especially once you get the hammer, it's not that much of a time-consuming thing that it sends you back here. And the main reason that I love it is that it's rare for a game to, without any words, just so frequently remind you of what you're doing, of what your goal is. And here, whenever you die, you're returned to see this sleeping, comatose Zelda, and it just tells you this is what you're working for. This is
Yeah.
You died, and this is why you're gonna keep going. It sort of reminds me of Majora's Mask, and that you're always seeing that moon looming over your head. It's the kind of thing that Zelda... I mean, Ocarina of Time does it pretty great, too, with the way the world changes.
And you heard it here, folks. Zelda 2 is as good as Majora's Mask.
Yeah, that's what I said. Definitely. Majora's Mask is like my favorite video game. But we don't need to get into that now.
One of the best.
I definitely understand why the decision to send you back to the start has so much... It causes so much discourse. Because it is definitely an inconvenience. And I can see why someone would think it's poison for the pacing of a game. But I personally, I'm pretty... If I like a game, I can tend to accept faults already, but it is something that I genuinely believe is really unique and important to this game's identity.
Oop.
That's convenient. I don't
I
think
know
this
a
is
little
enough.
bit more.
Yeah, I need a little more.
Fortunately, these keys drop magic if you're a little lucky. But yeah, blue enemies tend to drop magic here. And here in Zelda 2.
Nope.
Well, you don't need to leave the screen. They can...
Oh, they do?
Yeah, they respawn.
Oh, okay. Oh, that guy's back.
And forth. He only hit little bottlenecks like this, but it usually doesn't take that long
Well, this is a problem I caused myself by
Yes.
poor management of my magic, because
I mean, you had already
I need jump.
been here.
Yeah, exactly. There we go.
There it is.
You can pretty much, if you're looking for it, you can scrounge up some magic pretty readily in this game.
Yeah.
It's something that we've brought up multiple times because of this game's reputation for being absurdly difficult.
Right. Now we have like grievances here and there, but I think it's best to focus on the positives because it's just so rare for those positives to be addressed.
Yeah, I didn't get to finish this thought earlier. I got sidetracked by something.
Oh, sorry.
But that was my own sidetracking. Before I gave this game a chance, my idea was just that it was extremely difficult, cheaply so, really confusing with stupid. Basically, my idea was that it was Simon's Quest, but this game is not Simon's Quest. Simon's Quest is Simon's Quest.
Simon's Quest is uniquely horrible among big name video games. Well, maybe of the NES era. Yeah, maybe it's not. Maybe we're just too used to really good NES games.
I think I'll definitely need to give Simon's Quest a bit more of a shot eventually, but it's no Zelda 2.
No. You know, I'm sure there were many Simon's Quest level cryptic games of the NES time.
Absolutely.
But the Zelda 2 I don't think is one of them.
People talk about it like it's ghouls and ghosts.
Yeah.
Ghosts and goblins? I don't know which one's which.
Super Ghouls and Ghosts is the SNES one.
Okay. Great titles.
For some reason they changed the name. Anyhow.
Oh, I know Bagu. Don't worry.
Yeah, we know Bagu. We know Bagu!
Wow.
Oh man.
It's such a fun name, that Bagu.
You're definitely cross now.
Like, the NPCs in this game aren't really anywhere close to Dragon Quest IV level NPCs, but
or even Dragon Quest
for the first
level.
Zelda game with NPCs, they've got charm about them. I remember Bagu. I know Bagu.
I mean, Zelda 1's got some NPCs, but they're mostly like
there's like two NPCs.
Tricksters.
There's the old guy and then the pig who doesn't want anyone to know where he lives.
Yeah.
And those are great characters. And characters many people like.
Something, will ya?
But
that guy's great. I love the guy at the shop who goes, This is really expensive.
Yeah, that guy.
Do you want me to buy your stuff or what?
Okay.
Right.
I say I'm gonna give this Death Mountain one more shot, and my game over. I guess we call it there.
Yeah, we'll call it there.
Oh.
I think we've said quite a few things about why this game is.
There's
pretty good, actually.
There's so much to say about Zelda 2. At the very least, it deserves to be given fairer representation than I've usually seen it given.
I mean, Super Smash Brothers gives it pretty good representation. You know, we got the temple stage, you got its music. The temple music in this game is pretty iconic, but it's really absolutely because of Melee.
Yeah, I mean, that is a great remix of the song.
But Link's moveset in that game is almost completely due to this one. At least in terms of his standard A attacks. Up stab, down stab, they're all there. Only you could use shield in Smash Brothers.
That'd be something. Right? It's right?
Yeah, right. Right.
Yeah, bridge level. I didn't used to. The addition of being able to emulate these games with some decent looking scan lines has completely changed my relationship with NES games. It is a significant aspect of why I now love NES games. And
because they were meant to appear this way. This is what the display that these pixel art games were made to be seen on, and it helps blend the colors and the visuals together, and they look a lot less blocky.
Oh, I don't have enough.
Nope. I like how it climbs in towards the edge.
Oh.
Well,
now I'll have enough for jump at least.
Yeah.
But I find this game among the NES games, not just among Zelda, to be pretty unique looking in a lot of ways. The overworlds definitely remind me of Dragon Quest, NES Dragon Quest overworlds, but like the enemy designs and the tiles, they feel very distinct to me. I think this game is flat out beautiful.
It has a very different feel from any other game in the series. I know we mentioned the Greco-Roman architecture, but the whole game has kind of the feel of a sort of an ancient myth, where it's kind of gruesome in some ways that we wouldn't see in, like, at least as explicitly in other Zelda games, where the story literally talks about sprinkling Link's blood on Ganon's ashes. The enemies feel a lot more kind of brutal and dangerous. It's got a lot of kind of weird, like, why are
there's throughout. I mean, there are some weird iterations upon the choo-choos and the choos in Zelda, but these ones are like very, to me at least, very clearly Dragon Questy type slimes. But they look they look off. They look weird.
They do look pretty weird.
They're a slime made by someone who knows what a Dragon Quest slime is. Like, what are these guys? These guys are in the wrong game. It reminds me of the mob ones. Look kind of weird in Ocarina of Time to me. And a lot of the enemies in this game look like those moblins.
It's Crocodile Man. I forget what these guys are called.
This guy's wearing a skirt.
Yeah. Kind of funny to me, they named the knights in this game not Dark Nuts, but Iron Knuckles.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of interesting that they decided that they weren't the previous game's Dark Nuts.
I've called them Dark
Nuts.
Right?
Knights.
I called them Dark Nuts earlier, I think.
Oh,
I call them Dark Nuts in this all the time. But they are officially Iron Knuckles.
Right, who would later appear in Ocarina of Time with some of the best combat sequences in the game.
Oh, I mean, we've only been through one, but the temple design in this game, it's really good, and it's, like the combat, is a very similar vibed, but extremely different form of Zelda 1's dungeons. Zelda 1's, I mean, you know better, you can probably explain Zelda 1's dungeons better than I can, but in this game, they're very much more they're more linear and more about going through tunnels, fighting enemies, and saving up your XP and your magic resources.
Yeah. Now, Zelda 1's dungeons are more like these strange chambers with some questionable structural integrity. There were often a lot of bombable walls and shortcuts that you could take if you knew where they were.
Ooh, thank you.
Yeah, this kind of has a bit of a Dragon Questy feel, where you come back, you have higher levels, you got a better chance of succeeding than you did last time.
Yeah, just keep pushing on, and eventually, through your increasing skill and the little nudges you get in your increasing avatar strength with levels, eventually you will be powerful enough to make it through.
Right.
This guy's really hard.
Guess we're far enough into the video to talk about the final boss if you would like.
Oh. Yeah, we could talk about the final boss. But first, let me make sure that I want to try to not lose this. I want to beat this guy.
Alright. Got 2 on it.
Where did you come from? It's a bug! Okay, I got that guy.
It was Bagu.
Oh, I don't have enough. Shit, I'm gonna keep it running.
You do.
Oh, this guy's not a problem.
Yeah, you haven't lost that much life.
No, but there's another one of those guys. Fortunately, I still got shield up.
Yeah.
Oh, well, not anymore. I think I have enough for life and a shield, but shield is definitely more important. Oh, I don't want to get hit by these guys. Oh, my sword is strong enough now. I was just taking 2 hits earlier.
Oh, nice.
Good. That was a waste of life. I could have done that better. Is that the last guy, or is there one more? Oh no.
I think you got it. Just go down.
Down?
Yeah.
There's a magic refill down there, though, isn't there?
I don't think so.
I'm gonna check. It won't really hurt to check, because those are.
It will, because there's a guy. Pretty sure there's a
Well, I can peek my
axe
head
guy
in.
here. Or maybe there's not? Oh, there's just nothing here.
I got this.
That's fine.
It's enough for another shield.
Yeah, the final boss's AI
Is intense.
pretty innovative for the time. It's very reactive.
Right. It's right or left? Right.
Right. Of course, Shadow Link, which is a sort of. I mean, we see it all the time now, but it's a pretty interesting idea. Then that like it implies that there's some kind of darkness inside of Link that he has to conquer. We're sort of unaware of it. Characterizes him in an odd way. This guy's gonna fall off the cliff. Yeah. Those guys are terrifying only because you can't hit them until you get the down
Yeah,
stab.
the only way to damage them is... You might be able to fireball them, but you cannot attack them with your sword until you... Oh no, I forgot. Oh no. Oh no. Oh.
I think I was in the... is that going to be it?
Yeah, that's it.
We almost reached the hammer there. That would have been the screen, I think. But
yeah. We can talk
Zelda
about the
2,
final
hard
boss
game, but it is it's very good. Well, it's well made. It's pretty awesome. You want to get, you can go down and get that. Yeah, the magic container.
I think
Probably
my favorite...
probably would have helped that if you had that before.
Yeah, probably. I thought you might have needed the hammer to get it. I didn't remember. I think you just need... Do you need jump? But the final boss...
You don't need anything. You could just get it.
Dark Link is the final boss, and though there is a way that's relatively well known to cheese that final boss, I managed to successfully beat him on my second attempt properly, and it was a heck of a final boss. And the boss preceding him is equally as awesome.
Right, Thunderbird.
You learn a spell. I believe optionally, you can learn a spell that really helps defeat that boss.
I don't know if that's even optional. I think you might have to get that.
You might have to use it. And the final dungeon is just...
But it's often criticized that you're not going to have enough magic to do it. But if you go left from the boss chamber, there's a bunch of magic refills.
Yeah. The last dungeon splits itself in two, and one of the directions is a dead end, and the other direction is the proper one. When you finally reach the final split before the final boss, if you go left, there are some magic. There's like 2 or 3 magic refills to ensure that you have full health and are fully equipped for the final 2 bosses of the game.
Yeah. All in all, Zelda 2 is extremely innovative, still very unique to this day, and very worth playing.
Absolutely. Especially if you turn it on and you just kind of like the way the combat feels. The combat only gets cooler and cooler as the game progresses, and as you unlock, as you get more spells to use. Like this is you get into an encounter on the overworld and you're thrown into this bullet hell desert segment where you're jumping around and blocking whatever these are. I don't know what these fireballs, meatballs, dirt.
Going fireballs. I mean, like they're glowing, they're flashing, they're spinning.
You keep going. You get XP. You get upgrades. You get there's a bunch of heart containers that get. There are specific, sometimes well telegraphed, sometimes completely random tiles in the overworld that house 1-ups, which will give you a 1-up for that life, that cycle. And when you game over, that 1-up is gone entirely. Which means that when you discover one, you're encouraged to replay this game and keep track of the location of Bagu, to remember the way through Death Mountain.
Right, and it's all about information. Once you have all of that, then you can go and collect all of the 1-ups on your quest for the final dungeon, because just the road leading up to it is very brutal.
And if you're struggling to make it through Death Mountain or a palace later on, you can get into encounters on the overworld and get another level on that one level, especially later in the game. one level makes all the difference. If it's a life upgrade, a magic upgrade, a sword upgrade, all of them are huge. They're momentous. You get a level up, it changes everything.
I took this as a given earlier, but I think maybe we should point out that on the overworld, it'll show you the strength of the monsters that are running around there. The big humanoid guy is the strong one, but the other two are fairly weak enemies. So you'll know what to avoid if you want to just get into a smaller encounter. Or you can stick to the road and not have to worry too much.
As well as the road, depending on the tile you're standing on, whether it's a forested tile or a grassy tile or a swamp tile, that'll change the arena you enter the combat in, which also changes the enemies drastically. These spiders only really show up in the forested areas.
Yeah, the framing of these encounters is pretty good. It's this idea that on Link's travels he came across all these monsters while he was walking in the forest were brought down to his level. This is what he sees when he's walking around all the time.
We're zoomed in on this much more close up, much more personal. What's the word?
Perspective.
There's this perspective here that is completely distinct from Zelda 1, from Zelda 3, and from anything the Zelda franchise has ever done since. There's nothing like Zelda 2. As you opened up this video quoting Tim Rogers, what did you say? Zelda 2 is the... What is it?
It's the first and last game of its exact kind.
Yeah, it definitely is. If you have any vague interest in this, it's worth giving it a chance, no matter what trite you've heard about it. I personally promise you, Zelda 2 is a good game.
We've died a few times while going through Death Mountain, but trust me, the reward and the satisfaction you will feel when completing that section of the game is more than enough to carry you through to the end.
Absolutely. Like, I was pretty much hooked as soon as I finished Death Mountain, because you get that hammer and there's all these boulders around. You start going around bonk. There's another boulder. There's two in sight right now.
Yeah,
the game is already saying
is on the way to that village to the south. So you have all of these locations in mind that you want to come back to.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And apparently, for some reason, you can use the hammer to chop down trees.
Yeah, you only learned that from the manual, and you need to know for a second.
You must know
that
you can bonk the trees with a hammer. It is only, I think it only does something once, but the manual does tell you.
In a single section. You get a flute, you get a hammer, so you got a couple of actions you can do to help exploration on the overworld. But yeah, that's Zelda 2.
That's Zelda 2.
Thanks for coming.
Have a great night. Bye.